Hello, my friends. Let's start with the fact that today Trump made a new statement about the negotiations.
I've also been working relentlessly to end the terrible bloodshed between Russia and Ukraine. And very importantly, talks are being held in Turkey later this week, probably on Thursday. And they could produce some pretty good results. Our people are going to be going there. Marco's going to be going there. Others are going to be going, and we'll see if we can get it done. 5,000 people, young people for the most part, soldiers from Ukraine, soldiers from Russia. They're not from here and they're not from the United States, but they
As you can see, they believe Russia wants to end the war, but judging by the shelling and the increased activity on the front lines, they clearly aren't planning to stop anytime soon. Meanwhile, Putin is complaining that many countries are trying to harm Russia, even at their own expense.
They're doing things that are actually hurting themselves. You'd think they wouldn't do this or that, wouldn't follow through, because it's damaging to them. But they do it anyway, idiots. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I mean, leading economies around the world are sliding into recession just to hurt us. Like buying a ticket and not getting on the train just to spite the conductor. What is that? So of course, we need to keep in mind that they might really do what they're publicly saying, and we at least need to.
In short, the circus continues, but Putin is still afraid to attend the negotiations himself, so most likely there will be no meeting with Zelensky. And once again, Peskov refused to answer the question of why Putin is afraid to meet with Zelensky.
How do you view the fact that Zelensky suddenly dreams of meeting with Putin in person? He keeps saying, I'm ready to do anything to meet with Putin. Why now?
Listen, we only comment on statements made by President Putin, who has proposed to hold negotiations with a delegation this Thursday in Istanbul. Our delegation will be there, and will be waiting for the Ukrainian side.
Zelensky also said that China and other leaders had asked Ukraine not to launch drone strikes during the May 9 period, and Ukraine kept its word.
We received a signal from the Chinese side that they support the 30-day ceasefire proposed by Ukraine. We also received signals from China and other countries that it would be fair to move toward a full ceasefire and ensure safety during the dates of May 8th to 10th, in the region where many leaders will be present, including China. We understand what this is about. Once again, through our actions, Ukraine proved that we always do what we promise. There were no strikes on May 9th, despite all the propaganda. No attacks on their parade.
As you can see, there were no strikes at the request of international leaders. And today, Kellogg announced the key issues that will be discussed during the negotiations in Istanbul. A complete ceasefire on land, at sea, and in the air, including a ban on strikes against infrastructure. The future of the five regions annexed by Russia. The US sees freezing the front line as the starting point. The management of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant with US assistance in restarting operations. The return of Ukrainian children deported to Russia. A halt to NATO membership, at least for now. The deployment of British, French, German, and Polish troops west of the Dnipro River and peacekeeping forces in the east to monitor the ceasefire. Friends, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think any real agreements will be reached? But today, unfortunately, there is also a lot of bad news. For starters, there are already signs of Russian military equipment being moved closer to the front. Russia is seriously preparing for a major offensive, shifting forces to key hotspots on the battlefield, according to the Financial Times, citing Ukraine's defense intelligence. Essentially, Ukraine's intel confirmed what we've been saying. Russia is faking negotiations to buy time. But that's not all the bad news. Unfortunately, the front is continuing to collapse seriously. Just yesterday, I reported a new breakthroughs by Russian forces, and overnight, Ukrainian soldiers confirmed more advances. So let's move on to the situation on the front lines. Let's start with the Pokrovsk direction, where things are catastrophic. The Ukrainian armed forces managed to hold the defense for quite a while, but now it seems their time has come to retreat. Yesterday already brought confirmation of Russian advances in four separate areas. And overnight, Ukrainian troops reported that the village of Malinivka is now fully under Russian control. Officially, it's still considered contested and in the gray zone, but Malinivka is under full Russian control. The Russians have raised their flag in the center, advanced westward, and carried out stabilization operations. So, next, they'll push toward the village of Myrne and try to reach Novoekonomichne from the east. They are also stabilizing the northern part of Myrolubivka, which is de facto already under their control, and preparing to advance northward again toward Novoekonomichne. This signals that the Russians plan to threaten Mirnograd from the east and advance along a wide front. They're also preparing a staging ground to attack Promy and flank the city from the south. Once again, on this front, they are encircling our garrison like panzers. These Russians are moving forward without hesitation. Friends, what we are witnessing today is a disaster for the Pokrovsk front. If Russian troops aren't stopped now, this could mark the beginning of a full scale collapse in that direction. The situation in the Kurakhove direction is also catastrophic. The only difference is that there is no immediate risk of losing several major cities. However, Russian forces here are dangerously close to the Dnipropetrovsk region, which is also very bad. Yesterday, they managed to capture Preobrazhenka, and sadly, the Ukrainian forces had to retreat from yet another village. They also make a breakthrough near Kotlarivka, and the general staff reports that fighting for the village is still ongoing. Russian forces are also storming Troitsk, Oleksiivka, and Bahatyr. The assaults on Bahatyr are practically intense. There is fierce fighting for control of the village, and Ukrainian soldiers report that due to the high intensity of drone activity and attacks, they are running out of time to carry out an orderly withdrawal. Russian drones are actively working over Bohatyr. There is little time left to pull out and stay alive. You can feel it from our fierce resistance. When there is close contact, it means they are pushing us out. There is no point in holding onto this piece of the northwestern sector anymore. It's becoming clear that withdrawal to more defensive positions will be necessary. And so it goes village by village. The front continues to shift, sadly. In the direction of Velika Novosilka, Russian forces are also gradually advancing, although their gains are minor. At the same time, the assaults on the villages of Shevchenko, Vilne Pole, and Zelene Pole continue, and they're pushing through near Novosilka. Shelling also hasn't stopped, but for now, the fighting continues. In the Zaporizhia direction, Russian forces have also made some limited gains. They failed to capture Mali Sherbaki and Stepove, so they decided to push through the fields instead, trying to worsen the situation in nearby villages. They're also shelling other settlements in the area. Assaults on Mali Sherbaki and Malatok Machka are ongoing, but so far they haven't managed to advance there. In the Kherson direction, Russian forces are not giving up attempts to advance on the islands, and nearly every day there are recorded efforts to push forward. However, there have been no breakthroughs to the right bank, and for now, only shelling has been reported. In the Toretsk direction, The front is also shifting unfavorably for the Ukrainian armed forces as Russian troops are slowly advancing toward the Klebanbyk reservoir, aiming to continue toward Kostiantynivka. Yesterday, it was confirmed that they managed to break through past Toretsk and reach the eastern outskirts of Sherbynivka. They're also assaulting Novospassky and Dachne. Additionally, they have pushed through fields closer to the village of Zorya and Romanivka. While no new assaults have been reported there yet, the Russians are trying to attack and shell Stara Mykolaiivka to straighten the front line and move forward. On top of that, they've also advanced toward Alexandropol. According to some reports, the village is already in the gray zone, but there have been no new assault reports so far. So we'll wait to see how the situation develops. However, the deterioration is clearly visible to the naked eye. In the Chasiv Yar direction, fighting continues within the city, and Russian forces are also attempting to break through toward Bila Hora. However, there have been no changes over the past 24 hours, and all attacks have been successfully repelled. The Ukrainian armed forces also report that the situation remains under control. In the Siversk direction, attacks continue on Gregorivka, Bilogorivka, and Vasyukivka, but so far Russian forces have made no progress and the situation hasn't changed over the past day. In the Liman direction, assaults continue on Zarichne, Ямполівка, Колодязі, Зелена Долина, Липове, Рідкодуб, the village of Новий Мир, Ольгівка, and Дружелюбівка. However, there have been no new changes over the past 24 hours, and Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks. In the Borova direction, the Russians are assaulting Zelený Gай and attempting a breakthrough near the village of Nadia. But here too, there has been no new advancement and the situation has remained unchanged over the past day. In the Kupiansk direction, assaults continue on Glushkivka and Novoosinovo, and there is an attempted breakthrough near the area of Pishane. Shelling is also been recorded here, but so far there have been no major breakthroughs, and the front line remains unchanged over the past 24 hours. In the Dvorichna direction, the Russians continue attempting to advance toward Novovasilievka. They haven't achieved any success, and all attacks are being repelled. The situation hasn't changed over the past day. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians continue to strike Kharkiv, showing that they don't need a ceasefire. They also continue to storm Vovchansk, but have achieved no success there, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Sumy and Kursk directions, Russian assaults in the forested area are still ongoing. However, they haven't been able to push the Ukrainian forces out of the Russian territory, and the fighting continues. In the Sumy region, there is bad news. Despite the official reports not mentioning Russian attacks, Ukrainian soldiers on the ground reported overnight that the Russians have advanced. In the Sumy direction, the Russians have made advances in the occupied areas near Belovode and Loknya. I don't understand this gray zone nonsense in Sumy. I understand everything, but it can't be stretched indefinitely. There are territories where the Russians have entrenched themselves. The issue is that the General Staff reports that this area is in the gray zone, while Ukrainian soldiers are already saying that the Russians have entrenched themselves. Based on a video released by Ukrainian soldiers today, it can indeed be said that the Russians have taken Belovode, as the Ukrainian forces show they are destroying Russians within the village. As it appears, this is another settlement that had to be abandoned. in the area near the village of Tetkina, the Russians continue shelling, although the Ukrainian forces haven't advanced further, and the situation remains unchanged over the past 24 hours. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.